Should iRacing be worried about low fuel motorsport? After a week of playing LFM with Assetto Corsa, that is what we're going to be talking about in this video. This YouTube channel is made possible in part by people using the Gamer Muscle Fanatec affiliate link in the description when buying fancy pants sim racing equipment, and also by crazed and deranged people that send us money every month by being members. There's something really wrong with them. Thank you for subscribing, thank you for clicking the like button. Let's get on with the video. I have to say, after having done a few million MX5 and LMP3 races on low fuel motorsport with Assetto Corsa, that iRacing probably should be just a little bit worried. Now obviously low fuel motorsport is still in alpha with Assetto Corsa, so keep that in mind with this video. And you know, it goes without saying, iRacing's an established platform, it's got loads more players, and also got a fully brainwashed Stockholm Syndrome user base there, which basically amounts to a much more competitive environment from just the sheer volume of people on it alone, especially in classes like GT3 or some of the higher Formula classes, and at peak times you're just going to get much more competition in iRacing. That's going to be the case probably into the near future at least. But what I think should be really worrying for iRacing is that the majority of people playing iRacing are not actually that good at iRacing and are not the really highly competitive players. The bulk of people on iRacing, if you play all through the day and look at what's most active, are players that are using the content that's included in the monthly subscription, driving cars like the Formula Ford, the MX5, and basically just jumping on and taking advantage of the hourly races that happen in iRacing with that content. They're not the most skilled sim racers, they're not the most competitive, they're basically just taking advantage of the convenience of being able to get a race any time of the day when someone's got an hour or so to do some sim racing and enjoy their fancy sim racing equipment that they're mostly not allowed to touch because they're too busy with their work, too busy with family, or just banging themselves with a plank of wood on the forehead because of all the bad decisions they've made in life. The worrying thing for iRacing should be, though, LFM, even in its alpha, with the MX5 and the LMP3 car, basically beats iRacing for that type of jumping hourly racing with basic content, and effectively does it for free. For argument's sake, though, you could say that AC is £15 and you can optionally support low fuel motorsport, which you should do if you're using it. £6 a month. Well worth it, given that they track all your stats and everything and obviously offer the hosting and stuff. I would subscribe to it if you use it, but you don't have to. So effectively it's free. And when it comes to netcode, handling, graphics, sound, VR performance, AC beats iRacing on those hands down. Oh, and force feedback. AC is just a much more realistic sim than iRacing to drive, and a much more rich and detailed driving experience than iRacing, especially in cars like the MX5, but even in the LMP3 car. I'm not saying that the cars in AC match up exactly to real world cars, or even that the cars in iRacing match up exactly to real world cars, but the end result in AC is just on another level closer to any experience I've had with real vehicles, and it just feels like a richer experience. It's just more going on, more subtle handling, more detail in what's going on. I would say the netcode is sort of swings and roundabouts. In AC you get Viking rowboating for people that lag. In iRacing you get ghost contacts and Tony Hawk's kickflips over the top of hills. You know, in AC the damage is overly forgiving and not visually interesting. In iRacing the damage is a dice roll. Sometimes there's no totally forgiving, other times your car, it's like a lorry's hit you from a little tap, and then the damage is also completely random. You do get the nice graphics, much better graphics in iRacing for car damage, but then in AC you get much better environmental graphics and a much more stable frame rate with things looking a lot nicer than iRacing does, and also it runs better in VR than iRacing. I'd definitely say setting up iRacing initially is more user friendly than Assetto Corsa, but let's face it, a inebriated gibbon can get Assetto Corsa working. So, you know, if you're going to be spending hours driving around a track, you should be able to install a few mods and get AC up and running. It's really not that hard. Ultimately, you can get jumping online racing with Assetto Corsa, and with the MX-5 and the LMP3 races they've been offering, the racecraft and the racing has been on a par with what I'm used to getting from in iRacing. And I say this as someone that's got thousands upon thousands of hours in iRacing. At the beginning of the year, we got up to 5k iRating, driving all the different series, and I do actually really enjoy iRacing. And I would say, because of iRacing having voice chat, iRacing is actually still more entertaining. Also, due to iRacing being so unforgiving and mental, the crashes are hilarious. So, you know, iRacing is more entertaining in many ways, but from a functional perspective of someone that's jumping into a sim, wants to do some online racing, wants to have a race guaranteed every hour, and wants to have people that are mostly trying to race clean against, LFM with AC, even its alpha, is offering that core feature. Bonk. I think I misshifted and caught him out by surprise. But we continue with the race anyway, it's all good. So, I definitely think, obviously, if you're looking for the most competitive drivers, and with the, as I say, GT3 and higher series, in iRacing there's just a bigger player base at the moment, and people are more used to iRacing, they've been on it a long time, there's more competition there. So for those types of players, iRacing is going to be the thing to go to. And personally, I'm a bit of a sim racing, I won't say the word, but it begins with a S and finishes with a T. I really like going from rFactor 2 rank racing, iRacing rank racing, and this AC LFM. So I do all of them. But I definitely think if you were someone that's like, oh, well, you know, I've got a nice sim rig, I've got a nice wheel, I want to experience driving and feeling what that's like as realistically as possible. Oh, I can just jump in and drive. I think I will just use LFM with AC. Why, if you're just going to drive basic content, why would you bother with iRacing? And then, rather worryingly, if you wanted to do in iRacing like I do, F4 or even GT3 or other series that are more competitive, you're looking at spending £200+ a year on iRacing. And Fuel Motorsports is already offering multi-class racing starting next week, and different interesting car combos, with them changing stuff around and them not settling down on specific content yet. Well, I mean, we've got TCR next week, so those are hugely popular on iRacing, and I can see them being really, really popular with Assetto Corsa. And the actual TCR mod car that they're running, that car's free, don't have to buy it, and it sounds fantastic and it drives really, really nicely. It drives way better than the TCRs in iRacing, again for free with Fuel Motorsport. So I can see why people would stay on iRacing that are already indoctrinated with it. I will still stay on iRacing. I still play both. I still play rFactor ranked as well. But for new people coming to it, I don't see why they would really bother getting into iRacing when they can just get on AC. And I could see them just getting stuck on AC and wanting to refine that and get better at their driving, and they'll actually be able to feel what the car's doing and be able to learn how to drive better playing Assetto Corsa compared to iRacing. So yeah, I just think it is actually going to be quite interesting. I think when you've got more of these ranked systems coming out as well, not just with Fuel Motorsport, which is offering a very cost-effective system. If you've got rFactor 2 rank racing, which is quite expensive because of the DLC, so I think they should be worried about LFM a little bit as well. But then you also have next year AC2, which we don't know what's happening with ranked stuff on that. We've had the GT Revival, Enrique, who did Sim Racing System for AC. He's been confirmed to be working on a ranking system for that. And then we've got you got Rensport and then AC2 and God knows what happening. I think iRacing should be pretty damn worried overall. They do have an entrenched user base. They do have a brainwashed user base. They do have voice chat. Other developers need to do that. It's hilarious. I know it makes your ears bleed, but it is entertaining, let's face it. But iRacing are going to have to lower their price maybe or do something really significantly different. I think either massively improve their physics, massively improve their netcode, massively improve the design choices of how damage is given out. Obviously, they've got rain that they're working on, so that could be interesting. But I think most people can't drive 15 clean laps at pace, or even 4 seconds within a second of each lap consistently. So God knows what rain is going to bring to the table. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea, isn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love rain, the idea of it, the strategy. For me, it's fantastic. For people that have wasted too much of their life sim racing, and for longer races, great. But for what most people are doing with sim racing, which is 25 plus, 30-year-old plus boring gits that have only got an hour or so to jump in a sim rig, and they're like, oh God, can I get a race? Oh, I'll jump onto this. Rain is only going to make that worse. But yeah, so, you know, it's going to be really interesting either way, regardless of who's worried or not. It's going to be really interesting. I actually think maybe iRacing are going to have to try and double down on being the most hardcore sim, offering, maybe doubling down on the big events that they do. But again, the fact is, their force feedback, the physics is just not on a par with rFactor 2 or Assetto Corsa and maybe other sims that are coming out. So they've got a lot to do, iRacing. I think in some ways over the last 5 years they've been sitting on their bottoms twiddling fingers. Definitely in the last year or so, or last 2 years, they've been doing a lot of work. I know they've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but maybe it's too late. Maybe it's too late. I don't know. I think it's a very interesting subject, and I think it's also interesting that the end of this year has been mental for ranked systems, and then for what's been announced for future games, and how things are potentially going to get shaken up in the sim racing space. And with iRacing being the sort of incumbent online ranked and probably the predominant esports platform, especially in terms of stuff that they organise, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't know what you guys think. I hope that maybe some interesting comments on this and some interesting ideas on where things might go, stuff that I might not have considered. That'd be interesting to read and see. If you got this far in the video, let me know and say I regret getting this far in the video. That way I know how many hardcore fans and people that have been banging themselves with a plank of wood on the forehead we have watching this channel. I really appreciate it. Thanks for consuming this terrible content. But yeah, that is it for this video. Just an interesting thought. I think it's interesting. I'm absolutely loving Low Fuel Motorsport. I would 100% give it a go if you haven't. Well worth getting AC set up and jumping on Low Fuel Motorsport. And I would do Low Fuel Motorsport rather than iRacing to start out with. And if you like it and you get into it and you like competitive online racing, then I would say, oh yeah, maybe take a look at iRacing as well and see what they have to offer, do on their 3-month trials using my iRacing code in the description, obviously. But I think a lot of people would just be fully engaged with AC. They'll be like, well, I don't need any more. But that's just me. So yeah, until the next one, guys, thank you very much for watching. Most importantly of all, drink lots of tea, take care, and goodbye.